Welcome to Inside College Admission, conversations with admission leaders about matters affecting the college-going process. My name is Peter Van Buskirk, and I'm joined today by Todd Reinhardt, who's the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management at the University of Denver. Welcome, Todd.
How are you doing, Peter? Great to
I'm
speak with
hanging
you.
in there. Hanging in there. Wow. I was just imagining as we were getting ready for the call what it must be like in Colorado right now, because what do you feature, about 300 days of sunshine?
We still have the sunshine coming. It's so eerie to still have the sunshine and the beautiful mountains with the snow on the peaks, but yet there's this eerie feeling that, you're on the highways and there's no cars. I happen to be on campus today. I come in a few days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And our campus, this is normally the first week of our spring quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually still is. They're just all at home doing it online. But it's really weird to walk through campus and literally not see another human being.
Well, in our warm up to this, you said that you would be one of those who would be out in the mountains enjoying the last run on the slopes in April, but that's not happening right now.
It's not happening, and obviously March and April are very busy months in the admission world. So I don't really get to, in typical years, take vacations, but I get up there on the weekends. And probably about 2 weeks ago, all of the ski resorts closed for the season. And I think it was hard. They were trying to maybe just close for a couple of weeks, but to keep your seasonal employees around for another 6 weeks, it was just, they made the right decision for everyone's health, but just also, for business purposes, it would have been hard. I know some of the younger people are still driving up there and kind of sneaking on when they can, but I'm not young enough to walk up those peaks anymore and then ski down. It'd be fun, but I'm not ready to do that quite yet.
Wow. Well, you alluded to the fact that this is a time of year for those of us in admission that's pretty exciting. It's a celebratory time when all the students who've been in the admission process as candidates have received word of the outcome at University of Denver, and they're pretty excited about that, and you're eager to have them come to campus, and of course then you have thousands of juniors chomping at the bit as well, and then all of a sudden, nothing. How's that feel? I mean, how are you dealing with that?
It's one of the strangest experiences. As I mentioned, I'm in the office today, and normally our hallway, we're in University Hall. So this is a building that was constructed in 1890. And it has all the great architectural features that you can imagine from that time period. So we have this great hallway and these big ceilings, and normally it's just crowded. You can barely walk through our hallway if you need to get to use the restroom at this time of the year. And literally the lights aren't even on. So it's so eerie not to see people. And to your point, yes, we host a lot of admitted seniors, but we normally, especially, we're a destination here in Denver. Mm-hmm. People come out here for spring break to ski and do a number of things. So it's common for us to have lots of 10th and 11th graders kind of on their way to the mountains or maybe on their way back. Mm-hmm. To do some college visits, right? They'll swing by University of Denver and do a campus tour, and so those are not happening. So it's been challenging for our seniors trying to make decisions on where they're going to enroll, but this is an important time for 11th graders to get out and decide, next fall, which is going to come up quickly, where am I going to apply? Exactly. Both of those groups are having to do that process completely differently than years past.
Well, and I'd like to dig into each of those scenarios a little bit here. But speaking of the students who've applied, been accepted, what have been and continue to be the biggest pandemic-related challenges that you are facing as you proceed to enroll the class of 2024?
Well, I think the number one is that the admitted students can't visit campus. Mm-hmm. And some of them had been here before. Maybe they were one of those 11th graders a year ago who came, but
right.
When you do those visits, you're doing the real surface. You're doing the information session, the campus tour, and you're kind of looking big picture, and you're maybe visiting 10 or 12 schools. And when you get admitted, you're going to narrow it down and maybe only visit 3 or 4 campuses, but you're going to do much different things. You're going to attend a class. You might request to meet with a biology professor, for example, or eat lunch in the residence halls. You're really trying to get a feel for what it's like to live there for 4 years. And the seniors are deprived of that opportunity this year. So hands down, that's the number one. And truthfully, anyone, and you worked in admission for years, Peter, we like people. One of the reasons we're in this profession is we enjoy interacting with people, and we enjoy helping young people kind of make their college decisions. And we really miss hosting all these visitors. You know, and I'll remind my staff that, because sometimes you've just hosted 600 people on one of those admitted days. By the end of the day, you collapse. It's a lot of work. And now I think everyone would sign up to do that work right now if they could.
Absolutely. So you're working remotely. How is that affecting the psyche of your staff?
You know, I think they're handling it really well. I'm so impressed with how quickly we really transformed kind of our operations, really turned everything upside down. And we are 99% remote. I'm remote a couple days of the week, and then a couple days, me and a couple others come in because we're still processing checks and mail, and there are still some transcripts that are being mailed in that, you know, we're doing credit evaluations. And so, you know, we're still doing some things in person, but 99% is remote. I do worry about the morale, especially, you know, I mentioned we kind of feed off of each other. I think when you're in admission, you do it because you are kind of a people person. But the Zoom meetings, I also think, are wearing us out. That's also one of the reasons I don't have a very strong voice right now. I think this is the most I've ever talked in my life. And my days, I feel like I still do most of my work at nights and on the weekends because I'm spending most of my days on Zoom meetings.
Wow. Well, but come on, you're an old ball coach from way back, right? I mean, you've got good voice.
I do, yeah. I've yelled a few times, but yeah, I think truly that's the pivot we're making now too, that you almost needed 2 weeks of these nonstop meetings to figure out, okay, how do you do visit programs virtually? How do we, you know, do any of our number of processes that we have to get done this time of year, and do them from home and do them virtually? And I think we've gotten to the point now where we figured out all the strategies and all the logistics, and now we have fewer meetings, and it's time to just execute.
You got it.
And get the work done. So hopefully by next week, I'll start to get my voice back.
I hope so. One of the things that I remember from my days is that much of our work was driven by models. And I suspect you're very much into looking at yield models and predictive analytics and that kind of a thing. But given what's going on in our world right now with the health crisis, the economy, changing perspectives on, do I want my kid to be close to home, far from home? Can I afford this? I was rich 2 weeks ago, but now my retirement and any money I've saved for college is gone. This is a really uncertain time for you. So have you figured out a different algorithm that you can use here to predict the right number of students to admit? Are you going to use the wait list? What kind of things are going on now?
All these things. And Peter, if you have any brilliant ideas, well, you know, I'm taking recommendations. So,
okay.
You know, it's been interesting. I would say the last 2 or 3 years, and not that we ever have a normal year, it just always seems there's 2 or 3 factors that are completely different than the year before. And as you know, your models primarily use historical data to predict future behavior. You're looking at characteristics and trying to apply those to your current pool and predicting how they'll behave. And, you know, really when we talk about behaving, it's really, you're trying to manage, okay, we know how many seats we have and how many beds we have, and we need to fill those exactly. We can't have too few and we can't have too many. And the models, you know, work fairly well. And we usually have several different models that we use. And you're correct, this year you just throw them all out the window because none of them are worth anything. And I think, you know, we always talk about our work being an art and a science, and this is the year where you're still using the science and that historical data a little bit, but this really more is about the art.
You got it.
And I think every day we huddle as a senior team and talk about these things. And yes, we're doing any number of different things. And truthfully, there were signs of this as we were heading into our final committee of the year for regular decision. We had already done early action. We had already done early decision. So our last round was regular decision. And I think a number of universities like Denver, we have a pretty healthy international enrollment. So I think a number of us thought, you know, some of the students we would normally wait list, let's offer those students now in regular committee, because we're going to need to make up our loss in international students, let's make that up with some of our domestic students. So we had already put out more offers and probably used some or a lot of our wait list already. So we feel good about the offers we've made. And I think now we're, the part B of this, okay, I think we feel like we have enough offers out. How is this economy going to play out? And
Exactly.
certainly you're starting to see initial signs of it, but I even look out my window and just a couple blocks from my office are just some of the local restaurants around our campus, and they're all closed. And you just start to worry, okay, the people who work there, is everything gonna be okay in a month or two and they're gonna open back up, they're gonna get their jobs back? Or if this stretches on, will those places actually maybe not ever open back up again? And that's just the beginning stages of this. You really don't know. I mean, our financial aid office is prepared to start to handle appeals, but it's so early right now. Here we're needing families to make decisions in May, or some schools have moved their deadline to June, but even then, that's a really short window, and maybe you don't have any demonstrated things on paper to show that your income is going to change, or you might be worried you're going to lose a job. You actually haven't lost your job yet. So I think we're trying to balance all these factors and trying to predict things that hopefully won't happen, but you have to be prepared that they might.
Well, you make a really good point. The situation with the economy in particular is very fluid right now. And unlike a depression or a recession of 12 years ago, where other factors got involved, this is a health related thing. So it could be that, a month from now, people who don't have jobs have their jobs again. Or it could be that a month from now, we've gone from 6 million unemployed to 12 million unemployed. And it's just really hard. I would not want to have your job trying to figure that out.
It's fascinating. We are definitely setting aside emergency money for those worst case scenarios. And I'm thinking, we're talking mostly about our prospective students, but my responsibility and our team's responsibility is also for our current students.
Exactly.
We're definitely setting aside emergency financial aid, just like we did in 2008 during that recession, because we don't want to lose our current students. So they have parents who've lost jobs, have lost their assets, have lost their college savings. We want to see them through so they can finish their work and get their degrees at Denver. So we're going to do everything possible to make it work for those families.
Before this crisis hit, there was still a lot of speculation among admission folks regarding the impact of the Department of Justice ruling or actions with regard to giving consumers more flexibility in making choices. The candidate's reply date that colleges have used forever was regarded as something that was simply getting in the way of fair trade and such. So there was concern even 3 months ago that there would be a somewhat unruly behavior among colleges and universities as families would be encouraged to shop around for the best offer. Colleges might quote unquote poach, etc. So when you add that layer on top of everything, what's your reaction to that? Do you think that we're going to be able to collectively, as an industry, if you will, maintain order here, or do you think it could get out of control a little bit toward the end of the summer?
It's interesting. I think the pandemic is so large that it's overshadowed, and the rulings with the Department of Justice almost seem like old news and just so minor right now.
Oh, by the way, yeah.
And I think the other interesting thing about it, in some ways, the timing of it could not have been better. That if there is a year where schools really are going to need to recruit this class the entire summer, this is it. So, it would have been interesting too, just you see, the Olympics canceling or postponing a year, and all these big sporting events and conferences, everything's canceled. You almost wonder if NACAC and our profession would have, relaxed some of these rules anyway in this time of crisis, just because it's so unusual. And that, I think we would have had to allow our members just more time to recruit anyway and more flexibility. That wouldn't have been permanent, of course, but you just wonder if that would have happened anyway. And so in some ways, I think it's going to work out fine. To your point, though, I really felt at a school like University of Denver, some of those effects were going to be more on the margins. So
Hmm.
did we admit a percentage more students this year, anticipating that over the summer we might lose some students to new scholarship offers or just, new recruiting from some other schools? Yeah, you bet. But I thought, maybe we'd lose 20 students. I don't think we were anticipating that we would lose 100 or 200 students. And, maybe that could be a result 3, 4, 5 years from now as more and more schools maybe get into the space. But I also think families, for the most part, when they make a decision, I don't see them in large volumes over the summer changing their minds.
Hmm.
Right? They've spent time in a normal year. They've visited campus and they've really done a good deep dive. And I can't suddenly see people switching just because someone, offered them a spot or offered them, a few $1,000s more. That I think these decisions hopefully go a lot deeper than just $3,000.
Gotta hope so.
Right.
Now, do you do any sort of pre or early registration for enrolled students in the summer?
What we do, and actually the timing couldn't have been better. We're on quarters, so I think first of all we start in September, so we're I think because of that extra month, we're a little more hopeful that by fall we'll be up and rolling. But we always have a week of orientation that we bring the first year students in a week before everyone else is here. And for years during that orientation, they would also register for their fall classes.
Hmm.
And last summer, for the first time, we changed that process. We had them register online in July. So they registered a couple months before they even arrived for orientation. And we did that because we wanted to spend orientation doing orientation,
Right.
actually onboarding them and doing a lot of professional development with the students on any number of topics that are really important. Let's take that business transaction of registering and do it in July. So our plan is to do that again for a second year and have our students register in July for the fall quarter, and then hopefully host our orientation. So to your question, no, we don't have anything in person that happens on our campus over the summer.
How then are you accommodating those admitted students who are trying to make that final critical decision of where am I going to land in September? All of the open house things that you'd like to do on campus, the in-person kinds of things, don't seem to be available to you right now. So what's your plan B?
Yep. So the plan B is they've moved to virtual. So, instead of meeting the chancellor or some of the deans in person and having them do a panel and answer questions, we're going to still do those panels. They're just going to be via Zoom. And we're going to do those live. So families will be able to, type in questions and ask our administrators and our professors questions. And our current students will certainly, every Friday, we're having our tour guides do sessions. So we're going to try to offer as many of those experiences as we can virtually. And, so far it seems to be working. And, I feel for those seniors having to make these decisions, but at the same time, they're adaptive, they're innovative, they're used to technology. It's maybe a bigger deal for our staff
Exactly.
than it is for the students. And they maybe will prefer this. They can do it on their phone while in their bed or on their couch and not have to actually talk to people in person. So maybe for some students, it'll end up being better.
Very much a generational thing, I guess.
Yeah,
We're
I think
finding them in
so.
their space now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any conversation at all on your campus about when you think you might be opening up to the public again? Or is that just a day-by-day thing?
Yeah, it's day by day. Yeah. Again, I would have said a month ago, okay, we'll close down for a few weeks and we'll be back up in May. And obviously that's not going to happen. And yeah, I'm kind of done predicting the future right now on this. But the good news is most of our summer quarter, which starts in June, and this is true undergrad and grad, and it's been this case for a few years now, probably 85% of our classes for summer quarter have already been online.
Hmm.
So we don't have a lot of people actually here in person. They might live in Denver and do an internship with a local company, but the class or two they're taking has been online already. So we're prepared for summer.
Good.
All the kind of the selection of courses that we offer, the suite of those courses, they've already been in that online format. Obviously, the faculty had to rally really quickly for our current quarter to pull that off for all the materials for courses that had previously never been online before. But thankfully, the suite that we offer in the summer, those were ready to go already. And then we're hoping because of our later start in September that we should be good for fall quarter.
Excellent. I would imagine that your faculty probably has had to rally in a big way to get their things together. I mean, again, the things that had already been lined up for the summer are in good shape, but others who had to finish the current semester, the current quarter, in order to make it through, have had to scurry pretty quickly, I guess.
It's been amazing what they did. Essentially over the spring break, because when we first came out, we said we were just going to do the first 2 weeks online and then come back and finish the remaining 8 weeks of the quarter on campus. So they were at some point rallying, just probably in their free time and on weekends, trying to put together 2 weeks worth of material, knowing that, hey, the things that really need to be done in person, we'll save those for the later weeks. And then it became obvious as our situation became more challenging across the country that we weren't going to be able to be in person. And they suddenly had to put a full term's worth of material together. And I think, I really applaud them because of their colleagues who work at semester schools, really had to finish and think about kind of more of the temporary. How do I just finish up these last 3 or 4 weeks of the semester online? And our faculty had to come up with how do I do an entire 10-week term online? And that was a bigger lift. And I am so appreciative of what they have accomplished. I guess we're on day 4 now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure both students and faculty will find their groove. And in 2 or 3 weeks, they'll be feeling great about it. But even these first few days, the feedback I've seen, just students and parents posting on social media, they're really pleased right now with how it's been going.
Excellent. Now, as we suggested earlier, this month, this time of the year, is not only a time to get the seniors to the finish line, but now you've got this mob of juniors assembling at the starting line for next year. And as you and your staff look ahead the next 6 to 8 months, things that were normally part of your repertoire, visits to high schools, attending college nights, college fairs, hosting open houses, doing a lot of in-person things. All of that's very much in jeopardy, I would imagine, right now. So, how are you looking at that picture, and how do you think it's going to resolve itself?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me to worry about that, Peter. I'll be honest, with May 1 quickly approaching, our staff's efforts have really been focused on the admitted seniors.
Yep.
We have to do everything we can to give them the information they need. But as we progress in April and obviously get into May, we're going to really focus a lot more on the 11th graders because they need the help. In fact, some of our staff probably travels more in the spring than they do in the fall. With some of the fairs and the case studies that we do. So yeah, it's really unusual. It's going to be, I'm already worried about like, what's our applicant pool going to look like next year if students haven't visited campus and we haven't been out on the road meeting them. But everything we're doing virtually now for the admitted students, we will start, later this spring and then over the entire summer, really doing programming that's geared towards the 10th and 11th graders. So your rising seniors and your rising juniors. And the same things we talked about with the admitted students. We're just going to have to replicate those and offer the same virtual experiences. I'm hoping at some point, maybe in July and August, we'll be back open and we can invite some of the students to come, later in the summer. But again, I think we have to be prepared to just be virtual the entire summer. Mm-hmm. And then if you get the good news that you can open back up, that's just kind of frosting on the cake.
Absolutely. Now, as I've talked with juniors in the last several weeks, one of the biggest concerns they have has to do with testing. They're obviously concerned about finishing their own academic years and what that'll look like, but the conversation invariably comes around to I've taken the PSAT or the early ACT, and now I've taken maybe one of the regulars, but I want to improve my score. I don't have a chance. The May was canceled. Who knows what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. Is University of Denver taking a look at any accommodation for students who may not be able to present the full testing profile that they might otherwise show?
You bet. We were lucky once again with our timing because this current year was our first year of test optional.
Oh my.
So the students who applied this cycle who will be enrolling this fall, it was the first group that we offered test optional. And we were very surprised how many did this. When I talked to other schools in their first year, maybe 10 or 15%, 25% of our applicant pool applied test optional this year. So we feel really good about it. We're ready, next year, to your point, if we have more in the pool, because they just haven't had the opportunity to take a test, we're prepared for that. We can handle that, and we're excited to have more of those students.
In my days in admission at Franklin and Marshall, we went test optional, and I found it to be a really liberating kind of experience as a reader of an application, to be able to look at the content of the candidate rather than the number. And as I try to reassure students that test optional can be a good thing, I get a wary look often that's accompanied by the question, well, won't they just assume my score is low if I don't send it in? How do you respond to that? Do you ever hear that?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I think it's a fair question, but it's a myth, right? Students, they shouldn't overanalyze this. In fact, here's what's interesting. I said that 25% of our students applied test optional, but a third of them still actually submitted their scores. And we suppressed them, so we didn't look at them when the counselors were reading the files or when we were gathered as a group in committee. But when we looked at them afterwards, you'd be surprised how high some of the scores were. And I think, it's all relative. What someone thinks is a low score, we might actually say, well, that's a pretty competitive score. You realize you're in the 90th percentile in the country. Like, that score's okay for admission.
Well, it's always nice as an institution to be able to show off the big numbers. And I remember that we did the same thing with suppressed scores, and then we look at the data later, found that the average score of the non-submitter was almost identical to the average score of the submitter. Included in the non-submitters were some perfect scores, which frustrated me because I wanted to be able to show them off.
Right.
Well, as we think about what's going on right now and the changes that you're making to get through to the end of the enrollment process for the seniors and get started with the juniors, there's a sense that there's got to be a point in time in the not too distant future when all of this bad stuff's going to go away and we can go back to normal. Will we? Are we going to go back to things as usual, or do you think we're kind of finding our way to a new normal?
Well, I mean, it's going to be probably a hybrid, right? We're going to get some of our normal back, no doubt about it. I think the positive for admission, this is a positive for prospective students. We're not going to suddenly just stop doing all these virtual things we've developed, right? What a great thing, especially in Denver, where we're located. If you draw a 500-mile radius around the city of Denver, it gets pretty isolated pretty quickly. Right? So most of our students are coming from East and West Coast or from the Midwest. So they're not just hopping in their car and driving a couple hours. So, and we have a lot of rural students, even in Colorado, obviously, and in the states even far away, or low-income families who just don't have the money to go visit 10 schools. What a great opportunity now for them to have these experiences and to be able to connect with people, current students and counselors and professors, and to see all these dynamic videos that we're all this new content we're going to create. I think all of us are probably thinking we should have been doing this anyway. And my gosh, this is our future and we shouldn't stop. So my hope is we're always going to still be hosting thousands every year in person, but why can't we also be hosting thousands virtually as well? So I think that's going to be a really good process. And you had mentioned test optional. We had already implemented that this past year, and we were probably one of 1,000 schools that were now doing that. And I bet just in the last couple of weeks, it seems like 100 more have added to that list. Now, some of them are announcing it's going to be temporary, maybe just for next year, because of all the dynamics you described with tests not being available. And some have said we're going to do it for 3 years and really do our research and study. But I'd be willing to bet a lot of those schools at the end of that 3-year period, they're not going back. No. Test optional is a great thing. And in fact, I would tell families too, just kind of based on your earlier question, even in the old days, when our staff was reading the applications, they really weren't looking at test scores. So the test score really never comes up during the read, and it really almost never came up during committee. When you're deciding to admit and deny, really where test scores probably played a greater role at a school like Denver was more behind the scenes, this formula for our merit
Hmm.
scholarships. It was always, it played a role in admit, deny decisions, but it was pretty minor. I don't think our staff really focused a whole lot. Their deep dive was always on the transcript, looking at the curriculum, the rigor of the curriculum, the trends in the grades, looking at their actual letter grades, not just their GPA. So test scores, in a lot of ways, were such a minor factor in a lot of what we were doing. So I really embrace. I think it would be great to see more schools in that space.
So I would have guessed then that you'd probably suggest to juniors that they not stress too much on what they're not able to do with testing right now.
I would agree. In fact, think of any of the number of the things that we've been advising our juniors in communications. Okay, your school maybe just switch to online learning right now. That could be a new adjustment, a new challenge. Maybe you won't perform as well as you normally would have. And I think admission committees are going to be flexible. And they're going to understand, okay, the B minus that student got when they're normally an A performer, some of that could probably be explained by just being online.
Mm-hmm.
And not every high school is treating it the same way. My son goes to a smaller high school and they're doing more actually in-person online. My daughter goes to a larger public and, theirs is really more posting assignments and kind of working on their own
Mm-hmm.
and then turning everything in by the end of the week. And, some students will handle that really well and others are going to struggle without having that more personal interaction and instruction. So again, I think to the 11th graders, just relax. We're human and we're going to evaluate your transcript with a little different lens than we maybe would otherwise. Your AP exams are moving to 45-minute online. We know those are going to be different. The IB exams have been canceled, but yet we're going to still try to award college credit to these students. Some of the schools are moving to pass-fail, and we're not going to penalize a student if they have a pass-fail semester or a quarter to finish their 11th grade year. The good news is their first semester, maybe even 2/3 or 3/4 of the year, probably has traditional grades.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still feel like we're going to have a good body of work, and we can look at 10th grade, and we can look at maybe their fall term of senior year, and see, okay, before and after the pass-fail, how are they doing? So I think people, they just need to trust the process. It's going to be fine.
There's a basketball team in Philadelphia that's been trusting the process for a while. I don't know if it's working out for them right now, but I understand what you're saying here. So
Although right now they're undefeated the last couple of weeks, Peter.
That's right. They're on the road to some kind of a massive victory here, I think, at least in their
Right.
mind. Well, I want to wind things up here a little bit, but sort of reflecting closer to home for you, you've got two high school students of your own who watch the same news that you see. They've got to wonder what's going on in the world, and they also get probably a lot of information from colleges right now, and they're trying to reconcile how are we going to make this work. What would you say to your kids, or to any 17-year-old for that matter, who's looking at what should be a very exciting rite of passage in life, going off to college, establishing independence as a young adult, and just isn't quite sure how it's going to happen now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's interesting. I think the parents and probably their admission counselors at the respective colleges and their college counselors at their high schools, we probably stress and worry about all these things far more than they do. My kids, it's been like this blip on the radar. I think they certainly see the news. I think they see the concern, nationally, we just have for the health of fellow citizens. And I think they get all that. But I don't, at least with my own two, I haven't seen them too stressed out about any of the online school or about thinking about college. And, and maybe we're, as adults, we've overreacted a little bit with the college stuff, that maybe the kids have done a better job of putting in perspective and worried about, hey, no, let's worry more about the health and defeating this virus versus, they're not even worried about their college. And obviously that's not going to be true for everyone. And I can also say for our admitted seniors, we're also going to be very flexible this year. If they need deposit extensions, we'll give that to them. If they need more time to figure out their economics with their families, if they really need more time to make this decision, we'll grant them extensions. if parents have lost jobs and, they can't make that $500 deposit, we're going to waive it. We'll work with them to do that. Because a lot of the families, once the school year starts, they're going to receive financial aid to cover that. They maybe don't have
Sure.
$500 right now, but when they're receiving their financial aid when school starts, then they're going to be able to make these payments. So, I think things are going to work out. And probably people like you and me maybe worry about this more than a lot of the students do.
Well, good. I think you put a lot of good faith in the young people to get themselves grounded and make good progress forward. Before we sign off, is there any information you'd like to share, a website you'd like to refer folks to if they'd like to learn a little bit more about how University of Denver is looking into the future?
Sure. I'd say for right now, this will be a great resource for both the admitted students, but also the underclass students. When you go to the University of Denver's admission website and then go to the visit page, within that, there's a virtual visit page. So virtual tours, that page is just a great resource. And it's going to have videos. A lot of those programs I talked about, we're going to, record those. So, if you're not able to go on those exact dates when we're doing them live, families can go back and watch to get all the same information that the other families receive. So, I think I would start there.
Excellent. Excellent.
And not only that, all 5 of our undergraduate colleges have a section on there too, where they're posting their own building tours with videos showing their labs, having faculty, and not all of it's up and ready yet. I think it'll be organic, and every week they'll add a little bit more. But I think students will be pleased with the deep dive that they're going to be able to do.
Very good. Well, I really admire you and your staff for the efforts that you're putting forward to make this process work for kids who are eager to make it work for themselves. Thanks also for taking some time from your day to do yet another interview, a Zoom interview with us, and sharing with us your perspective on the process. That'll wrap it up for this particular webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and encourage everybody to be safe and have a great day.
Thank you, Peter.
Take care.